My name is Monique Wise. I was 31 years old and 3 weeks away from marrying the man I thought I would grow old with. People always assume betrayal announces itself loudly, screaming arguments, lipstick on collars, dramatic confrontations. But the truth is far crueler. Betrayal usually arrives quietly, when you're tired, when your guard is down, when you're not even looking for it. That night, I wasn't suspicious. I wasn't snooping. I wasn't trying to catch anyone doing anything wrong. I just couldn't sleep. The apartment was dim, lit only by the kitchen light spilling into the living room. Empty wine glasses sat on the coffee table, proof of my failed attempt to calm the nervous energy that had been building for weeks. Wedding stress, I told myself. Normal jitters, nothing more. My boyfriend Ethan was asleep in the bedroom, or so I thought. His bachelor party had been a week earlier, and we were finally back to routine, or at least something pretending to be routine. Then his phone buzzed. Once, I ignored it. Then again, I glanced toward the kitchen counter where he'd left it. The screen lit up just enough for me to see a notification banner, a name I recognized instantly, one of his closest friends. Something about the bachelor party. My stomach tightened. I remember telling myself, don't be that woman. Don't look, don't assume, don't create problems where none exist. The phone buzzed again. I picked it up. I wish I could tell you that what I found immediately made sense, that there was a clear line between before and after. But it didn't. At first it was confusing, fragmented, a group chat filled with jokes that didn't seem funny anymore once I read them slowly. I sat down. The wine glass trembled slightly in my hand as I scrolled. They were laughing, recounting the night like a highlight reel, talking about shots, dares, how wild things got after midnight. Then I saw it, a message that stopped my breathing. Man, I still can't believe you actually went home with her. I stared at the words, waiting for them to rearrange themselves into something less devastating. They didn't. Another message followed. Best bachelor party story ever. I scrolled faster now, my heart pounding so hard it felt like it might bruise my ribs from the inside. This wasn't about a stripper. This wasn't a drunken flirtation. This wasn't something I could shrug off as stupid but harmless. Ethan had slept with another woman. Not a stranger passing through his life unnoticed either. A waitress from the bar. A woman whose name they all knew. A woman he'd added on social media afterward. I searched for their private messages, my hands cold and numb. They were short, polite, almost clinical. Nice meeting you. Yeah, same. Take care. If I'd only seen that, maybe I could have convinced myself it was nothing. But the group chat told the truth. They knew. They joked. They encouraged it. One of them even wrote, "It's your last night of freedom. No regrets." I felt something inside me shut down. I didn't cry. That surprised me. I always thought I would cry if something like this happened. Instead, I felt angry. Not the explosive kind, but the heavy, suffocating kind. The kind that presses down on your chest and makes it hard to breathe. We were supposed to get married in 3 weeks. We had a venue booked. Deposits paid, invitations sent. A future mapped out in shared calendars and late-night conversations about kids and mortgages and retirement plans. I had imagined us old together. Now all I could think was how easily he'd erased me for one night. The clock on the wall read 5:52 a.m. Ethan would wake up soon. I poured another glass of wine, even though I didn't want it. It tasted bitter, but I swallowed it anyway, my thoughts racing in circles I couldn't escape. When he finally walked into the kitchen, rubbing sleep from his eyes, I felt like I was watching a stranger. "Hey," he said softly, leaning down to kiss my forehead. "Why are you up so early?" I let him. That was the part that hurt the most. How easily I slipped into the version of myself he expected. I hugged him back. I even smiled. "I couldn't sleep," I said. "Bad dreams." He frowned. "Wedding stress?" I nodded, because it was easier than telling the truth. "You know there's nothing to be stressed about," he said. "You're the best thing in my life." The words echoed hollowly in my head. He got dressed for work, completely unaware that everything he was standing on had already collapsed. When the door closed behind him, the silence felt deafening. That was when I started packing. I didn't rage. I didn't throw things. I moved calmly, methodically, like someone following a checklist they'd memorized long ago. Clothes, important documents, my laptop, a few personal items I couldn't replace. I left the furniture, the TV, all the things we'd bought together. Those weren't mine anymore. By the time the sun fully rose, I had made my decision. I wasn't going to confront him. I wasn't going to beg for explanations. I wasn't going to give him the chance to lie. I was going to disappear. And he wouldn't understand why until it was far too late. By the time I zipped the last suitcase, the apartment no longer felt like home. It felt like a stage set after the actors had left. Familiar shapes, borrowed warmth, nothing real. I checked the clock. 9:18 a.m. Ethan wouldn't be back until evening. That gave me time. Not to rethink, there was nothing left to reconsider, but to move cleanly, decisively, without drama. I lined the suitcases by the door, 3 of them. My life, reduced to what I could carry without asking permission. Before I left, I did one last thing I never imagined myself doing. I documented everything. Screenshots, the group chat, the messages that joked about one last night, the casual cruelty of men who knew exactly what they were helping destroy. I didn't do it for revenge. I did it because I needed proof, for myself, if nothing else, that I hadn't imagined any of it. That this wasn't stress or insecurity whispering lies. When I closed Ethan's phone and placed it back on the counter, my hands were steady. I didn't leave a note. I thought about it for half a second. Something sharp, something final, but I stopped myself. Words could be twisted. Silence couldn't. Down in the street, a taxi idled at the curb. The driver helped me load my bags without questions. I gave him an address to a hotel nearly 100 kilometers away, somewhere anonymous, somewhere quiet. As the city slipped past the window, my phone buzzed in my lap. Ethan. I didn't answer. Again. I turned the phone face down and watched buildings blur into highways, then into open stretches of road that felt like breathing space. For the first time since dawn, my chest loosened. At the hotel, the room smelled like fresh linen and disinfectant. Clean, impersonal, perfect. I locked the door behind me and sat on the edge of the bed, suddenly exhausted in a way sleep couldn't fix. My hands finally started to shake then, the adrenaline draining out of my system. I let it happen. I let myself feel the weight of what I'd just done. My phone lit up again. This time it wasn't Ethan. It was his sister, then his mother, then a mutual friend. By early afternoon, the phone felt like it was vibrating nonstop, the screen filling with missed calls and unread messages. Confusion bled into panic into desperation. I answered one call. My mom. Monique? Her voice was tight with worry. What's going on? Ethan's family called. They said you disappeared. I closed my eyes. I'm okay, I said. I'm safe. Where are you? Not home. There was a pause, the kind where a mother knows not to push too hard. Are you coming back? No. I told my parents the clean version, that I'd found out Ethan hadn't been loyal, that the wedding was off. I didn't give details. I didn't need to. Their silence on the other end of the line told me everything. My dad finally spoke. Do you need us to come get you? No, I said. I just need time. We're here, my mom said softly. Whatever you need. After I hung up, I turned the phone off completely. The quiet that followed was startling, almost peaceful. I slept for a few hours, the kind of heavy sleep that leaves you disoriented when you wake up. When I checked the time, it was late afternoon. The sun slanted low across the hotel room, dust motes drifting lazily in the light. I went down to the pool, sank into a lounge chair, and let the warmth soak into my skin. Families laughed nearby. A couple argued quietly over sunscreen. Life went on, unaware that mine had just split into before and after. When I turned my phone back on that evening, the flood resumed immediately. Voicemails, texts, missed calls stacked on top of each other like evidence. One message caught my eye. From Ethan's sister. I know you're upset, but you're overreacting. It was just a bachelor party. Everyone does stupid things. I stared at the words until my jaw ached from clenching. She knew. She had known the entire time. Another message followed minutes later, softer in tone but sharper underneath. He's completely broken. You owe him an explanation. I didn't respond. At 5:00 p.m., my dad called again. I hesitated, then answered. He's not doing well, my dad said carefully. His parents are worried. He doesn't understand what happened. I laughed then, not because it was funny, but because it was absurd. Of course he doesn't, I said. He wasn't supposed to. Do you want me to talk to him? My dad asked. No, I said immediately. Please don't. Monique, I need to handle this my way. He sighed. Okay, but don't disappear forever. I won't, I promised. Just not yet. That night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling, replaying moments I'd brushed off before. Little things, tiny hesitations, the way Ethan had deflected questions about the party, the way his friends had smirked when they saw me afterward. I'd trusted all of them. By 10:00 p.m., my phone buzzed with one final message before I silenced it again. From Ethan. Please, just tell me what's going on. I love you. I turned the phone face down and let the darkness settle in. He loved me, I realized, the way people love comfort, habit, certainty, not the way you love someone you refuse to betray. I broke my silence the next morning, not because I missed him, not because I doubted myself, but because there's a point where unanswered questions become a weapon, and I refused to let Ethan use confusion as one. My phone had been quiet for hours after I turned it back on, like everyone was holding their breath. I watched the screen light up with his name before it even started ringing, as if he'd been waiting, finger hovering, ready to dial the second I reappeared. I answered. Monique? His voice cracked immediately. Thank God. Where are you? Safe, I said. My voice sounded unfamiliar to my own ears, flat, distant. You don't need to know where. What's happening? He pleaded. You just vanished. I woke up and you were gone. Your things. You know why, I said quietly. Silence. Then a breath, a sharp inhale. I don't. I swear I don't. I almost admired the commitment to the lie. I've seen everything, Ethan. What do you mean everything? His voice rose in panic. You're misunderstanding. This is being blown way out of proportion. There it was. The minimization. The first step in rewriting reality. You went home with her, I said, after your bachelor party. The line went dead quiet. I could hear breathing on the other end, uneven, ragged. That's not, he started, then stopped. That's not what you think. I closed my eyes. Don't. I was drunk, he rushed on. Everyone was drunk. It didn't mean anything. It was just a waitress, I finished for him. Your friends encouraged it. Your sister told you not to feel guilty. You added her afterward. Each sentence landed like a blow. I could almost hear him shrinking under the weight of it. How do you know all this? He whispered. I smiled then, not with joy, with clarity. I'll show you. I hung up before he could stop me. Then I sent the screenshots. Not all of them, just enough. The jokes, the encouragement, the message that joked about his last night of freedom. It took less than 2 minutes. My phone rang again, vibrating so violently on the hotel desk that it rattled against the wood. I answered. He was crying. Not quiet tears, not controlled emotion. Full-bodied sobs that broke apart every word he tried to say. I'm sorry, he choked. I'm so sorry. I didn't want this. I didn't plan it. They pushed me, Monique, my sister, my friends. They kept saying it was normal, that it was expected. So you listened, I said. I was weak, he admitted. I made a mistake. No, I corrected. You made a choice. His sobbing intensified. I heard voices in the background. His sister, maybe one of his friends. Someone was telling him to calm down. Please, he begged. Please come home. Let me explain it properly. I love you. This doesn't erase everything we had. It erased enough, I said. I'll do anything, he rushed. Anything. I'll cut them off. I'll go to therapy. I'll tell everyone what I did. You can even... He hesitated, desperation bleeding through. You can even sleep with someone else if that helps. Just don't leave. I felt something cold settle in my stomach. You think this is about getting even? I asked. I think it's about saving us, he said weakly. The moment you touched her, I said, you decided there was no us left to save. He wailed then, a sound so raw it might have moved me if it had come before the truth. It didn't. Tell your parents, Vance, I said after a moment. Tell them what really happened, every detail. Then I'll think about speaking to you again. Okay, he said quickly. I'll do it right now, I swear. I ended the call. 30 minutes passed. Then my phone rang again. This time it was his father. Monique, he said, voice heavy with shame. I'm so sorry. We know now. We didn't raise him to treat you this way. I know, I said quietly. You were like a daughter to us, he continued. I understand if you never want to see him again, but you'll always be welcome in this family. His wife took the phone from him. She made a mistake, she said. People make mistakes. We can move forward from this. I swallowed. I appreciate your concern, I said politely, but I need space. Ethan called again that night. He had told everyone. His parents, his friends, even posted a message to our mutual circle, confessing what he'd done. I did everything you asked, he said desperately. When can we talk? When can you come back? I thought about it carefully before answering. Don't cry, I said gently, and don't apologize anymore. Hope surged in his voice. So there's a chance? No, I said. Single men are allowed to make those choices. I hope you find someone who accepts that version of you. His sobs turned hysterical. His sister grabbed the phone. You said you'd think about taking him back, she snapped. He's not okay. He's talking about hurting himself. This is on you. My voice didn't waver. It's good that you're close to him, I said. Make sure he gets help. Then I hung up. And for the first time since that night on the couch, I felt something like peace. I left the country 4 days later. Not because I was running away, but because staying felt like suffocating inside a life that no longer belonged to me. My friend Daniel met me at the airport. We'd known each other since college. He didn't ask questions when he saw my eyes still rimmed with exhaustion. He didn't try to fix anything. He just hugged me, handed me my boarding pass, and said, "You don't have to be strong right now." That alone almost broke me. The place we went was warm and bright, the kind of city people visit to feel alive again. Cobblestone streets, late dinners, ocean air that tasted like salt and freedom. Daniel paid for the flight without telling me until it was already done, brushing off my protests with a shrug. "Consider it an investment in your sanity," he said. The first 2 nights I barely slept. Not because I missed Ethan, that surprised me, but because my mind kept replaying an alternate version of my life. One where I hadn't picked up the phone. One where I walked down the aisle, smiling, ignorant, building a marriage on something rotten. I realize grief isn't always about losing someone. Sometimes it's about losing the future you rehearsed in your head for years. Daniel wanted to go out the first night. Clubs, music, noise, distractions. I told him I couldn't. He nodded, completely unoffended. "Tomorrow, maybe," he said. "Or not, both are fine." So I stayed in the hotel room, curtains open, watching the city lights flicker like distant stars. I didn't cry. I just sat with the weight of everything, letting it settle where it needed to. Halfway through the trip, the messages started again. Not from Ethan. I had blocked him everywhere. From mutual friends. "He's not okay. He's lost without you. You were his whole world." I read them without reacting. It was strange how easily people rewrite history when consequences show up. No one messaged me to ask how I was sleeping. No one asked how it felt to discover that the man I trusted most had laughed about betraying me with his friends. They only noticed the pain once it belonged to him. One evening, Daniel and I ate dinner near the water. Candles flickered between us, the sound of waves filling the silences naturally. "You know," he said carefully, "you're allowed to miss what you thought you had. That doesn't mean you were wrong to leave." I nodded. "I don't miss him," I said slowly. "I miss the version of my life where I didn't have to question my worth." That night, something shifted. I woke up the next morning and felt lighter. Not happy, exactly, but clearer. The fog that had been pressing against my thoughts finally began to lift. When I returned home a few days later, reality crept back in gently. My parents hugged me a little longer than usual. My apartment, a small place I'd rented temporarily, felt empty, but safe. Mine. Then the final message arrived. From my father. "She asked if she could talk to you one last time," he said. "For closure." I stared at my phone for a long time after that. Closure is a funny word. People use it like a key, as if one final conversation can neatly lock pain away forever. I already had my closure. Ethan had made his choice the night he decided vows were optional before they were even spoken. I texted my dad back. I don't think that would help either of us. He didn't push. Weeks passed. I heard through the same quiet channels that Ethan wasn't doing well, that he'd lost weight, that he'd quit his job, that he was still telling people he'd made the biggest mistake of his life. I felt neutral, not satisfied, not vengeful, just finished. One afternoon, I caught myself laughing at something stupid on television. A real laugh, the kind that surprises you because you didn't think you were capable of it yet. I paused, hand over my mouth, startled by the sound. That was when I knew. I wasn't broken. I was free. I started running again, cooking meals I actually enjoyed, saying no without apologizing, planning a future that belonged only to me, one that didn't require trust from someone who'd proven they couldn't carry it. Sometimes, late at night, I still think about the wedding that never happened, the dress hanging unworn in a storage unit, the guest list that never gathered. And every time, the same thought follows. I didn't lose anything worth keeping. I didn't become cold. I didn't harden my heart.